Wait, if you haven't seen the part 1 of this episode, go to the description below and check it out. Today we are going to refactor the code to add the service layer and the business exceptions. What is the service layer? It is the place where you should put the business code. Controller as the thin touchpoint should not have any business implementation at all. Controller stands for the exchange of information with the end client. In case of web applications, it is responsible for receiving the request, delegating the work to the layer below and returning the response, nothing more. The very last form of application we've had at the end of the last episode was the controller using the repository and calling the methods on it. This is fine for a super simple case. But as you remember, the repository doesn't or shouldn't have room for additional business logic. So how do we solve it? Let's have a look at the code. Let's create the BookService class. Basically, we want to move the logic from controller to the service in this example. So the class will look similar, but without all of the Spring Web annotations and conventions. Meaning, we create BookService class, which will operate on the book repository that is being get from the dependency injection container. The difference is that the BookService we annotate with the service, not REST controller annotation. The rest of the methods looks pretty the same, but without the annotations. So we have methods for getting all of the entries, entry by ID, creating, updating, and deleting the book entry. The difference is that we introduced the new exception, BookNotFoundException, which is the business exception. It's a common way across majority of the commercial systems. Exceptions should describe the purpose. In this case, exception is telling us that there is no book for given conditions. At this step, we are catching the business exception and morphing into the response status exception in order to return proper HTTP status. Now, we have the service, so let's use it in the controller. We need to refactor it a little bit. Let's remove book repository usage from the controller and replace it with corresponding methods from the book service. It hasn't changed much, but let's verify if it's still working. Series of the HTTP requests let us make sure that we didn't break anything. Alright, everything works. You know what I don't like in here? This throwing the exception in the controllers. Let's move the exception to the method signature and get rid of the first try and catch for getting the book by ID. Again, we are testing it, and what happened? Instead of getting 404 not found error, we are getting 500 internal server error. Why is that? Because we replaced the explicit throwing the response status exception with business exception. Spring doesn't know what to do now. So Spring acts in normal way, meaning it's returning the information to the user that something broke down in the application. And the HTTP code for it is 500. How we can tell to the Spring that this book not found exception should be translated into the HTTP 404 not found error? It's pretty simple. We need to annotate it with the response status annotation with corresponding value. In this case, not found. Run it again. Now we are talking. 404 not found. Last thing, I promise. Because we started the refactoring, we need to finish it. Let's delete all of the try-catch blocks and replace it with the method with exception signature. Take a look on the controller now. Notice how clean it is. Why it is important? Let's say that you will want to use the exact same methods from BookService in the other place, like Event Listener for instance, or maybe SOAP Web Service. In this form, you are ready to reuse the code, not duplicate the code. Do you feel how clean and neat it is? That has been said, we just reached the end of this episode. Whole project GitHub code you can find in the link in the description as well as the blog post. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. See you soon.